How do you think the coronavirus crisis has affected the campaign for independence?
Well, I think it's exemplified the difference between Scotland and England in many ways. I mean, let me give you the latest example. We're now obviously having moved on a bit from the immediate crisis in health. We're now looking at, right across the United Kingdom, the economic consequences of COVID. And many of the consequences in terms of the symptoms are very similar: rising unemployment, redundancies, businesses going bust and all the rest of it. But we've had an independent report published yesterday in Scotland showing that we need to spend £7 billion in the next year to make sure we get an economic recovery. And to be quite honest, we need to borrow a lot of that money. Now, at the moment, under the Scotland Act, we can only borrow £450 million. Meantime, the UK government is borrowing from the Bank of England and has already borrowed about £750 billion. We only need about 1% of that figure. And yet we've got to wait for Boris Johnson to tell us if he's going to allow us to borrow that money. We should be able to make that decision ourselves.
But Alex, the UK government, they would say, they've saved businesses with the furlough scheme, and independent Scotland, as you said, wouldn't have that kind of political and economic clout.
Well, that's, with all due respect, rubbish, because you have to look at how it's being funded. Not just in the UK, but in the US and in Europe, it's being funded through borrowing from the central bank, basically printing money. And an independent Scotland would be in the same position. We would borrow from our central bank to fund the recovery from this crisis.